Hello from lockdown day 9005, or what feels like day 9005 at least. Hope you're all doing well and staying safe. Today's episode is about an intersection that's been on my mind a lot lately. Bad Covid-19 takes and the online rational atheist scene. Why are there so many truly awful, embarrassing takes in this movement that prides itself on being so much more intelligent and compassionate than the theists they look down upon? It's something I often wonder about these days. I mean, cringe memes are one thing, but how do they transform into phrenology, you know? So here we'll discuss the bad takes stemming from the scene as well as those adjacent to the scene. For example, Dave Rubin, who has been a pretty big name in the movement, is now technically no longer an atheist because he renounced his atheism for some of that sweet, sweet grift cash from the Christian right, but is still very often and very embarrassingly praised by some big name atheists, which indicates just what a clown show this movement has become. And then there's Tariq Fatah, who you'll often see retweeted onto the timelines of many anti-Muslim, rational atheist / ex-Muslim types. He still uses the label Muslim, despite admitting a few years ago on my podcast that he isn't actually a believer at all. But I suppose the label Muslim really comes in handy for when you're looking to become the Hindu far-right's favorite useful Muslim. You see, you can't do that when you're just another non-believer. And there's Maajid Nawaz, of course, who is a staple in the skeptosphere. He also identifies as Muslim, and boy, you can't miss it, because if you disagree with him in any way, he won't fail to remind you that he is, in fact, a brown Muslim man, in the same breath as shitting on the left for identity politics. The thing is that parts of the atheist scene have become so entangled with the Western right and far right that it's impossible to make a clean cut separating the two. If you talk about one, you kind of have to talk about the other, unfortunately. And what makes the Brain Genius Club especially insidious is that it holds some legitimacy in the mainstream. It can normalize dangerous, bigoted views much more easily. You could hear takes from Tommy Robinson or Tucker Carlson on Fox News being called out for the dog whistly bullshit they are. But then you could hear similar takes rehashed by someone like Doug Murray or Sam Harris, and suddenly they hold a lot more weight for centristy liberal types even. And that's the concern. I was first inspired to do this episode when I saw a Twitter take by atheist author and professor Peter Boghossian, who created an entirely fake pandemic-related situation in his head to fearmonger about diversity. Nothing like using a global pandemic to push your shitty agenda, eh? He said, "Would you refuse a vaccine or deny it to your loved ones if the research team behind it was exclusively white, cis, het, male, and wealthy?" And then I saw more takes of his along the same lines and more. And then I saw James Lindsay screeching about an article that was simply titled, "From the Hospital to the Lab, Black Scientists Are Fighting COVID-19. And then I saw Stefan Molyneux, another atheist author, who also happens to be a white nationalist, and was described as the finest podcaster for reason by Michael Shermer of Skeptic magazine. His amazing COVID take was, "These are not masks. They're communist burqas." I don't even know what he's fucking trying to say there. But, totally rational, normal stuff from a totally rational, normal scene. The general theme of anti-diversity and always supporting the status quo, siding with the powerful against the powerless in basically every situation other than religion. What is that about? And why has it become the thing for online atheism? How has a leftish-seeming cause and group and people closest to and surrounding this group, how has all that just become about carrying water for the right in everything, even in these apocalyptic times? That's what I'm interested in. The anti-lockdown stuff, people like Maajid Nawaz spreading conspiracies, tweeting articles from something called Lockdown Skeptic. Jesus. And other IDWers like the Weinsteins spreading ridiculous conspiracy shit too. Sam Harris making phone calls and building bridges with someone as dangerous and anti-science as Candace Owens. But, It's quote-unquote far left Ezra Klein who's beyond the pale. How has this become the swimming pool of ideas that all these high IQ heroes are splashing around in? The same geniuses that lectured everyone else about science and reason and logic. The conspiracies, the callousness, the bigotry, the fear-mongering. I mean, is this just a natural outcome of floating in too many facts and chugging too many pints of reality? Also, generally, this no nuance, ahistorical, childlike view of religion, bad, no religion, good, is exhausting and doesn't even scratch the surface of actual human complexity. How people can dwell in that realm year after year after year after year without evolving is beyond me. Yay, you figured out that creationism is BS, hooray! Can you maybe stop patting yourself on the back about that now? Oh, and before I forget, welcome to the IDW, Brian Adams. All right, let's listen to some clips first to warm us up for this episode. And yes, I know, these are all totally out of context, of course. And I'm an unfair meanie because I didn't play the entire back catalog of all the episodes of all the people featured here.
Jesus fucking Christ, can't we even have a pandemic without getting offended? Seriously, it scares me that there are people out there who would rather die from the virus than call it by the wrong name. This isn't about vilifying a culture. This is about facts. It's not racist to point out that eating bats is batshit crazy. So when someone says, what if people hear Chinese virus and blame China? The answer is we should blame China, not Chinese Americans. But we can't stop telling the truth because racists get the wrong idea. There are always going to be idiots out there who want to indulge their prejudices. But this is an emergency. Don't we have bigger tainted fish to fry? This has nothing to do with Asian Americans, and it has everything to do with China. We can't afford the luxury anymore of non-judginess towards a country with habits that kill millions of people everywhere, because this isn't the first time. SARS came from China, and the bird flu, and the Hong Kong flu, the Asian flu. Viruses come from China like shortstops come from the Dominican Republic.
Cancer is killing people as quickly as anything. Cigarettes kill 500,000 people a year. There's no government mandate that's trying to get people to stop smoking cigarettes. In fact, there's not a single word ever spoken about it in presidential campaigns, in governor campaigns, congressional campaigns. No one's out there trying to get people to stop smoking cigarettes. But yet it's killing 500,000 people every year in this country alone. We're so strange and I understand, cigarettes is a choice, and infectious diseases or not. We're worried about protecting people who have these compromised immune systems. But it's not most people. The vast majority of people that are going to get this are not, it's not going to be fatal. We have to figure out how to protect the people that are high risk. But to quarantine the whole country, it just seems like maybe it was a good move to do initially, but we can't sustain that. So now we have to figure out how to move forward. I don't want us to lose any people, but I certainly don't want us to lose restaurants either. I don't want us to lose bars. I don't want us to lose comedy clubs.
And they're telling us that we can't go to the beach. Well, here in SoCal, it's about 85 and perfect today, and I did get a little color in my backyard, but it's like, how about you tell us something mature? Tell us we have to go to the beach at half capacity and maybe have a car with a space between another car and you can only go in groups of 4. Give us something that will make us feel like mature adults, as you're supposed to do as government officials. Don't just say you can't go to the beach just because we say it, as if what they say is true just because they worded it. And I think that's the problem with progressives generally. They think that because they say something, it's inherently true. The weather's good. I thought we had a beach. Now we don't have it. I'm not sure what I'm doing here. Texas is looking pretty good these days. But I will tell you this, my sister and her family and 2 kids just moved out of New York City this week because people want to be free. Your intro was exactly right. Americans love liberty, love freedom. And by the way, we're willing to take a little risk to be free. Nobody's saying just get out there and do whatever you want and crowd everything. People are saying, hey, we got to get back to our lives. We're not hamsters in a cage. And you got to let us take a little risk so we can decide what the threshold is for our lives, as opposed to just be getting it as an edict, from somebody up in Sacramento, in my case. How concerned are you that as we just get more and more stuck in our homes, as we don't go out, as we don't socialize, as you probably saw in Michigan, you can't buy seeds at stores to plant your own food. All of these types of things. I'm much more concerned about that than I am the virus specifically. It just doesn't matter. But Greg, yes, you are right. You are right. When things actually hit the fan, when you suddenly have real issues to deal with, nobody cares about race, nobody cares about sexuality or gender or any of it. That was one of the best intros I've ever heard you give, because we're all Americans right now. We've got a real problem to face, and when you have real problems, the imaginary problems of the progressives really disappear into nothing.
Make sure that that program doesn't contain controversial subjects, and you're not impolite to people.
No, definitely not, Dad. You know me. I'm never, ever controversial or impolite.
Yeah. Okay.
Welcome to Conversations with your lovable, never pisses anyone off, ex-Muslim host Aina, keeping it non-controversial. Welcome to Panel 23 on the intersection of online rational atheism and terrible COVID-19 takes. It's a Patron's Choice episode, meaning my wonderful patrons who help keep the show going voted on a couple of choices, and this one won. If you too would like to be voting for such things and also would like to support the show in these hard times, then please head on over to patreon.com/nice mangoes and become a patron. So, anyway, I thought this specific intersection was an important thing to focus on during the corona apocalypse, because it just goes to show that we could be experiencing a literal global pandemic, and some rational genius brains will continue to have absolute garbage, dog-whistly, bigoted takes. I wonder why that keeps happening in the skeptosphere. Could there be a real problem with this kind of thing? Oh, and please note, though, this isn't an informational episode on COVID-19 itself. I'd suggest you get your info on that from the experts and no one else. And lastly, let me just emphasize that we're all atheists here, so please know that this isn't about criticizing a lack of belief in God, but rather criticizing one loud, prominent, and shitty segment of the atheist scene. And to discuss these high IQ takes, I've got here with me, if you were on atheist Twitter in 2012 to 2015 sometime, this will be a blast from the past. I'm sure you remember Atheist Blobfish and Atheist Mel, both who took the atheist out of their names. How have you guys been?
We're coping without the atheist part. Incredibly.
Yeah, I'm coping.
Yeah. It's been tough. It's been tough, but we're doing it.
Did your brains shrink noticeably?
Yeah, definitely. If I shake my head back and forth, I can feel it rattling around in there. It's really tough.
Oh, well, I'm so glad you guys could join me for this lovely chat.
Yeah, this will be fun.
Me.
So yeah, what have you guys noticed about the online scene lately? Firstly, talk to me a bit about why you removed atheist out of your name.
So yes, as you said, really heavy into the online atheist world for a good 2 years, give or take a bit. And it was a lot of the same thing, a lot of arguing with the same people, with the same arguments, and it got really boring, to be honest. Mm-hmm. And apart from the fact that it just got a little bit boring, is I just noticed that it was really, really unkind, a lot of what was going on, and just so unnecessary. And we were making no progress. It was just the same thing again and again with the same people. And it just felt like you're just sitting in a circle in an echo chamber, talking to everyone about atheism, going around in circles. And it just, it became really, really boring.
Yeah. What about you, Blobfish?
Yeah, I'd sort of echo similar sentiments. As I was saying before we started recording, I find with the internet atheism thing, like, you can sort of get everything in your brain, process all the high level ideas within like a year. And then if you're hanging around like after 2 years, like, you start sort of like looking at yourself and going, fucking hell, like, what am I doing? And then like after 3 years, like, you start looking at the company you keep and like the conversations you're having and whatever. And I just started looking around, and like all the Me Too stuff was happening, Brexit. Yeah. And like everybody that was sort of popular in that scene seemed to have like a real fucking like opposing view to what I would naturally have, like, without even considering my atheism or anything like that. Like, they were completely opposite to what I was thinking. And like, for me, the reasoning wasn't there, like wasn't there at all. Like, all the support for Louis C.K. and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Lawrence Krauss.
It's
most sexual assaults aren't fucking prosecuted anyway. There's no like punishment for Louis C.K. He's selling out fucking theatres. Nothing's changed for him. He was in a bad financial position. He's not anymore.
Yeah. And I think the thing is too, when things like this happen, I mean, of course, we don't know all the facts, and we may never know all the facts, but the number of people that their natural instinct was to jump to the defense of the suspected abusers is worrying. I mean, if you're ever going to err on the side of anyone, surely it should be on the side of the suspected victim, not on the side of the suspected abuser. And then when facts come out, then you can perhaps change your opinion. But the fact that your natural inclination is to support the abuser is concerning.
Yeah, like there's some like massive conspiracy or some history of men being fucking locked up for rapes they didn't do. Like, sure, there are, like, I'm sure there were men locked up for rapes they didn't do, but there are loads of men not locked up for rapes they did do. These are the fucking facts. This is the world we live in. Like, and you have to take that into account when you're dealing with these things.
Yeah, and that's always the way that I always saw, like, as time went on, as you were saying, like 1 year you get all the atheist memes, 2 years you're like, okay, what am I doing? Okay, 3 years, this is getting really repetitive. And then you're like, what the hell is happening? Why is there a theme of them always supporting the status quo, always supporting the powerful over the powerless, like in every topic? Like, and Me Too was one of those clear instances where even if they condemned Lawrence Krauss reluctantly, they still made a lot of excuses for people opposing
wait for the
Me
evidence
Too.
And all that shit.
Yeah.
Like when like the evidence that's there is so like wildly against Lawrence Krauss, like waiting for more evidence, like, is only gonna favour him, isn't it? Like, so
and not even just waiting for the evidence, but like reluctantly waiting for the evidence, like, oh, it's probably not true, but just to save, a bit of an image on social media, I'll say we'll wait for the evidence. Well, you don't really mean that, do you?
Yeah. And also, like, I think Sam Harris was criticizing the article that wrote about it because it was written in BuzzFeed, even though in other episodes of his, he's saying, if something is true, it doesn't matter what the source is, because I would take facts from Hitler if it's like just facts,
No, but you wouldn't, because you like, and that's the problem. Like, that's the problem. This is fucking high level idea bullshit. Like, for me, like, I always say about these debates, would you have it in the pub? Would you have that debate in the pub? And for 99% of them, they fucking wouldn't, because they'd be scared someone would overhear what they were saying. Like, personally, my favourite thing about it all is I've got a favourite book. And I hate the fact that it's by this person, but it's called Lying, and it's by Sam Harris.
That's your favorite book?
It started out as it's in my favourite books. Like, honestly, if you were going to ask me my top 10 books that I've read in my life that have changed the way I think, Sam Harris' Lying would be up there. And it started off as a blog, and I think it's about 140 pages, and it's just about the consequences of lying and believing half-truths, telling half-truths.
You know how often that book is thrown at people who say that, Sam Harris is being dishonest. No, he can't be dishonest because he wrote this book about lying, how lying is bad.
Yeah, but he literally describes like actions that people take now, so saying like 2013 when he wrote it, I think, like it was sort of prophetic in a way.
Simpler times.
Like of all the fake news shit that's come along, like it literally explains it for you if you read it. Like I read it again recently.
Maybe he should read it again.
Yeah, I'm so tempted to like tweet him some days and just go, have you ever thought about like really having a read through that? Like, and just because like he just went off the deep end. Like I personally think like when Hitchens died, I think internet atheism being cool died. Like that was it. And I think everybody else sort of realised it and they went, oh fuck, look, we're gonna have to pretend to be really cool now. And like we'll have a brain club and we'll start a dark web and all that shit. But like they're just not. None of them are cool. None of them are cool. But yeah, like Sam Harris, that book, like it's very good. And I read Letter to a Christian Nation and I think I've read all these fucking books. And Dawkins and Dennett and everyone. I read the fucking lot. Everybody did because there's only about 15 books worth reading. Mm-hmm. Like total, and that's a generous.
That's
I'd
like
say.
New Atheist scripture.
Yeah, like and like out of all of them, the only one you'd find really useful in like a sort of like context of life, like actual life outside the internet, is probably Daniel Dennett, and hardly anyone reads it.
Yeah, see that's the thing. I got in the peak of my online atheism, I got The God Delusion, and at the time it was just like, oh my. This is an incredible book. What an incredible...
Oh my God, he's reading my mind.
The thing is, I started reading it, of course, and I got like, I would say like a third of the way through. Just like, well, I know all this already. Why am I reading a book of things that I know? And so I didn't actually get all the way through it. But then, of course, I told Twitter that I did and that it was incredible. Because that's what you did, You support
but Dawkins tells stories really well. Like The Selfish Gene is a fucking work of art. To explain that level of biology in that way is fucking genius, undoubtedly. But he also tweets stuff like, I got called a cum dungeon. So
he's versatile, if nothing else.
You know what is a work of art is his tweet about thinking about dogs 69ing.
Oh, yeah. I don't even think on that. I can't process it.
No, it's a literal work of art. Like someone took that tweet and did a beautiful watercolor painting of Dawkins with like two dogs inside his head 69ing.
Yeah, that's great.
Is it great? I don't think it is.
Yeah, but that's what the internet's for, though. And I think people who spend like inordinate amounts of time, and obviously we're all doing that at the moment. But like when your focus is that, you have to realise that that's not the real world, and you have to take a break from it. Like, 'cause as real as it feels, it's not. And obviously you're talking to real people, but you're not talking to them in a real context. You're not sat opposite them. You're not looking in their eyes. Like you can say stuff that you wouldn't ordinarily say to them.
Where they will do things like post what your logical fallacy is.
Yeah.
Imagine saying that to somebody in a pub.
It's like high school debate.
Oh, it's
kids.
Terrible. Yeah, but like at high school and at university, it's cool because that's what it's there for, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's to learn how to converse with people, how to get your point across. And like, but for everything else, debate is pretty much fucking useless. Mm. Like in a real scientific context, like in most situations, debate is fucking useless.
Well, like it's endless. Firstly, because
because there has to be a fucking winner. But
even
there are some
no matter
questions
how
that
many
don't have an
times
answer.
you end the conversation about racism being bad or white nationalism being bad, someone wants to restart it, and these IDWers and rational atheists want to always endlessly entertain that conversation. It's like, but we're done. At some point, we're done with traditional gender roles, with why women should have babies. Yeah. We've ended all those conversations, but these guys are just repackaging them and bringing them back and pretending like they're the first ones to have these daring conversations. And, in terms of this COVID-19 takes. Like, it's strange how just like their atheism always morphs into bigotry. And for me, when I came to the atheist scene, you guys were actually, some of the first accounts that I came across on when I started Twitter, and I really enjoyed following you. And you used to write these like short Twitter character limit like atheist plays.
That was fun when it was 140.
Yeah.
And I stopped doing them because I ran out.
Yeah. There's only so many.
There are only so many fucking conversations you can have on the internet.
Yeah, but how do these people continue the same shit repetitively for like 5 years? God is not real. People who believe in him are like children who believe in Santa Claus. Religion is bad.
Yeah, Islam is Nazism.
Prayer doesn't work.
Yeah.
They say you pray for me, it's like being punched in my aura.
Yeah. Yeah, like cool, man. Like and like I'm glad there are those accounts out there, and I don't need them anymore, but I'm glad that when people need them, they can go and they can see that that not everybody is fucking religious and all that. Like, so I've got no problem with the accounts existing. What I do have a problem with is their fucking sort of like complete aversion to the left wing and like sort of hospitality to the right wing. Mm-hmm. Like they shout and scream at the left wing for being in hysterics. But the right wing are doing a lot of things at the moment that mean the left wing should be in hysterics. Like they are like if you look at Trump's government, if you look at Boris's government, there are like examples of real fake news where the government have lied or where the president has lied. And these brain trust guys, they don't care. It's not on their radar to care. They wait for Boris Johnson to come out and say something. They wait for Trump to come out and say something. They find the good bit in what they said, and they go, brilliant. That's it. Great job.
I think it's really interesting because when I go back and think about, the sort of the group of us that were quite active in the atheist Twitter sphere back in 2013, 2014, it really feels like people have kind of gone in three separate directions.
Yeah.
So, some of us have kind of just gotten out of it completely and really fallen hard into the left and into the category that we used to sort of laugh at and call social justice warriors, which is really funny looking back on the fact that we thought that was a hilarious term.
Yeah, I was horrible.
Yeah, we all were. We all thought it was absolutely ridiculous. And the social justice warriors, what are they? You know what they're doing? They're trying to protect people.
Yeah.
Who are.
This is what gets me is that like everyone in their own way is a kind of social justice warrior, right? For fighting for whatever they think is justice. So like the atheist community, like getting so mad at every little thing, or like at Nike releasing like a breathable hijab or whatever, which is just capitalism.
Exactly.
That's their idea of social justice. So they're SJWs too. And like at the time, it just didn't seem as sinister. Like it seemed like a bunch of, I guess people, leftish that were just criticizing a segment of the left. Now it's become a whole different dynamic where it's become like people that are defending Nazis on Tuesdays and Thursdays are like shitting on the left with really bad intentions. While the world is falling apart, they want to punch left and they want to embrace the right.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that we've had this group that have all sort of gone to the left and become the social justice warriors that we used to laugh at. And then this other side, which have just sort of, they probably would never admit to being right-wing, but they're right-wing supportive in the way that they speak because they're so anti-social justice warrior. So, some of the bigger accounts, I'm sure you can think of some of them that are that way.
They just won't admit it, but they are pretty right-wing.
They would never admit it. They will claim to be left-wing, but they're very, very sympathetic to a lot of things on the right, and they act as though they're getting a fair picture of what's going on, but you'll never see them criticize things that really should be criticized because a lot of their followers are right-wingers. And if they do that, they're going to lose their following. And that's not acceptable, obviously.
That's the IDW grift in a nutshell. claim that you're liberal, claim that you're of the left, that your biases lie with the left, but you are just so rational that you rise above that and you're able to criticize your own team while bending over backwards to defend the right, basically.
Yeah. And it's really funny because the odd time that those particular accounts actually do say something even mildly critical of the right, if you read the replies they get, it's incredibly clear what side their followers are on.
Yeah.
Because that's the only time that they'll get taken to task, is if they even mildly
but guys, they can't help who follows them. They can't help these things. Excuse me. These are innocent content creators that you're trying to besmirch. They can't help they can't help if they've got 40,000 right-wing followers. It's just how Twitter works. Sometimes you get them, sometimes you don't.
Yeah,
it's got nothing to do with being left-wing or right-wing.
It wouldn't.
Just sometimes 40,000 right-wing accounts follow you. It happens.
I mean, it could happen to me. You never know. I mean, who can say?
So have you seen some of these like COVID-related atheist takes, like Bill Maher out there going, it's not bigoted to call it the Chinese virus, and we're just big PC snowflakes because, and then he incorrectly says, we have the Spanish flu, which, wasn't from Spain, and then he names a bunch of other things.
Yeah.
And
well, here's the thing about that. So they've changed the way that they name these viruses quite recently, actually. Like in the 2000s, they used to call them according to where they were isolated. And then they realized that actually isn't helpful in any way. It's not descriptive. It doesn't tell you anything about the virus. So why don't we name them according to what they actually are? That's more useful. And that's the reason why it's called COVID-19 and not, the Chinese coronavirus, because that's not how they do the nomenclature anymore. It's not a conspiracy. That's just science. that's how it works.
Well, things change, things evolve. People learn from their,
Imagine.
And I thought that the atheist scene was like pro this, not always like saying, oh, but in 2000 and whatever, you used to name things like this. Yeah, but people have changed and evolved, and we encourage that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like for me personally, in like 2013, 2014, when like Islamophobia started being used as a word a lot on the internet, I know it came around a long time before that, but when I first had experience of it, the way I thought, like obviously everyone does that, there's nothing to be afraid of, like there's loads of stuff in Islam that's scary. Yeah. Because you make, like what you do is you make Islam unique. You make it unique and not like the other religions. It's different. It's different because they've got tachia. They've got tachia and they can lie. Like no, guys, you have to be serious. And that is the thing you need to click yourself out of. And like I found it easier when I heard, I think it was Bernie Sanders talking about global warming being one of the key causes of terrorism, and I was like, "Oh, what the fuck are you talking about, you wethead?" And like I went in, I did the research, and obviously, like it's not like the river's dried up, let's go and bomb the West. Like it's much more complex than that, and it's like if your village starves and they're under a certain like warlord, and you're this religion and blah blah blah. All of these things have a profound effect, and they only have an effect together. They can't have an effect apart. Like you can't just be like Islammed into being a terrorist. Like there has to be something else with it. There has to be like right wing conservatism. Like
wasn't it Bill Nye?
Islam isn't, so like Islam isn't unique, and that's the thing most people don't realise. And when you go in, like if you read Letter to a Christian Nation, if you read God Delusion, if you read Hitchens, I can't remember what his one was called, but if you read them, they're very specific about how Islam is the threat. And I think that's a bit that is false. Like foreign policy, like we've had for the last 40 years, ignoring global warming, like we've done for the last 40 years. And letting sort of pockets of conservative religious people pop up in areas that we're not necessarily in control of. Like that's what causes terrorism. Like like in a nutshell, like, but even that's not a good enough description of what causes terrorism. But these people, they really want you to think that Islam's the key, and it isn't. And it just isn't. And that doesn't mean that I don't oppose parts of Islam. There are parts of it that I find abhorrent, but there are parts of Christianity, there are parts of Catholicism, there are acts of Catholics, acts of Christians, acts of Muslims that I find abhorrent. But I don't think their religion is a unique identifier in their behaviour.
Well, I think that's the thing that's quite astounding, I find, in this atheism community. Obviously not true for everybody, but you see it a lot, that these people boil these incredibly complex themes down to the absolute most simplistic level, where Islam is bad, Islam causes terrorism, the end. Like there's no conversation about actual facts about what causes terrorism. It's just Islam. It's got to be the religion. There's no other answer. And it's incredibly simplistic, and these people don't see it, which I find astounding.
It's very like fundamentalist almost in a way, literalist, you know?
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating for me as an ex-Muslim to always be put on the defensive about Islam. Like I can't even explain to you how frustrating that is. Like I do not want to always be like, no, please talk more sensibly about Islam. Sometimes I just want to be, angry at the religion I left behind as well. But it feels like there's no grown-ups in the conversation. So you have to step in and be like, no, this is ridiculous. You can't be like comparing Muslims not in Mecca these days because of COVID to a virus that has been killed off by an antibacterial or something, These takes are horrific and dangerous.
Yeah, and I felt that way a lot about, not to the same extent, because I was, if anyone had followed me previously probably knows, I was a Christian, and like a very devout Christian through my teenage years. So I know quite a lot about Christianity. I have a lot of family that are Christians still, practicing Christians. And I've felt that way as well, coming out of the atheist realm and into this, whatever I'm in now, where, you see people going on and on about, prayer doesn't work. People who pray are idiots. What do they think they're achieving? And just, going on. And I think, well, for goodness sake, I've got a 90-year-old grandmother who prays, and it brings her some form of comfort. She's not hurting anybody.
You mean you're not owning your 90-year-old grandmother all the time?
Wow. Guess what, Grandma? Prayer is for suckers.
Yeah.
No. Turns out I don't do that. And I just
push her over when she's praying.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, God didn't save you.
Oh my gosh.
Or just like I just can't, I can't with these people, because it's just so one track, single-minded. There's no room for anything that isn't prayer doesn't work, Islam is bad, Christianity is bad. That's the conversation. That's all it is. There's no depth to it, and it's just
over and over again.
Repetitive, and it's repetitive and boring and simple. There's no depth, which makes it incredible that people are still doing the same things. What are we, like 8 years later?
Yeah,
7, 8 years later?
I feel like I, to some extent, understand it for the people that are just like leaving religion, right?
Yes.
Maybe they need this sort of catharsis, like this sort of angry, very vocal, and sometimes assholic atheism. But I don't understand the people that continue on for years and years.
And I think that was sort of the third way that I feel like we've all gone. We've got the ones who went social justice warrior way, the ones who went, right wing, sort of leaning and supportive way, and then the ones that are just exactly the same as they were 8 years ago, doing exactly the same things, having the exact same conversations 20 times a day. And I just think, like, I as much as I disagree with the ones who are being supportive of these horrible right-wing takes, the one I can't understand are the ones that are still doing this, arguing with fundamentalist Christians on Twitter for 8 years.
Atheist memes where there's like a picture of a sunrise and some atheist quote or something.
I can't.
Or
like Michael Sherlock tweeting the 50th picture of himself in a row with one of his
Michael Sherlock is my absolute fucking favourite. I love him. I think he's a treasure. I think he should be knighted.
Oh my god.
I think he should get honorary doctorates from like Harvard, Oxford, all of the FUDs. He's just marvelous. Who's the other one? Is it Bogosian?
Oh yeah, he's also
I can't.
He's fucking,
another
Do
treasure.
not,
He's
do
gone.
not bring up
He's gone.
any of their names. I cannot. I will exit this conversation.
I love them. I love them because I know for a fact that every single one of those like conventions, they all sort of like have a weird party after where people are like drinking scotch that they don't quite like, and then there might be like one person with coke, and like I'd love to be at that party, like and just like like all the short guys wearing like blazers and jeans, and like I like honestly I could fucking draw that party for you,
where they're like talking to endlessly about how God isn't real and everyone's praising them over and over again. Wow.
But
You're
yeah,
so
like there's a really
awkward.
hot girl in the corner saying the N-word and they're all like clapping. It's like,
oh my god.
Yeah, that party would just be like what cringe would be like if it was a person just in that party.
So as you were saying, Mel, there's like these 3 sections that people have sort of divided into, but I feel like there's a massive overlap between the repetitive atheist memers and the right-wing grifters. Mm-hmm. And some of them are like the same people. So it's like, what I'm interested in is how does this kind of atheism specifically transform into right-wing politics on all these topics that are not related to religion?
I have a theory.
Why does someone so hardcore atheist then become like anti-minority in every way, anti-diversity, and like a defender of Trump, like, in a roundabout way, not in the obvious way, because that's just for, the low IQ people. These guys are just so intelligent, they won't just openly defend Trump. Yeah. So how does Bill Maher go to defending, calling it the Chinese virus, Sam Harris quote tweeting that and saying it's perfect, and then they try to conflate it with like, if you're not going to call it the Chinese virus, that means you're being so politically correct you won't criticize the Chinese government, and it's like, what the fuck is happening here?
No, like for me, like my theory about why they always end up on the right wing is I think that the internet is like, its sole purpose was to connect people. There are some people that shouldn't be fucking connected. And those people are fucking like right-wing fundamentalists. And they're the people that have benefited the most from the internet. Like, you could see it in the governments that we've got in the West currently, like they are very firmly right-wing governments. But
how does that bleed into online atheism?
Because that's all that's on fucking line. Most people like I find like Facebook. Like, I deleted Facebook in 2016, I think, because of Britain First. Because there were 1 million people following it.
Yeah, and they share these cute pet videos sometimes.
If Britain First, if Britain First, then the people from Britain First, like, you can hear interviews with them. They are not clever people.
Yeah,
got on Facebook and they were provided with a platform to connect millions of fascists. And that is what Facebook and what Twitter and all of these things has enabled people to do. And like, I've watched this speech recently by Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yeah,
and he compares Mark Zuckerberg to like a coffee shop owner. Like he's saying that the guy sat in the coffee shop like shouting the N-word could stay. Really, it's up to him. Like, he says it's all about free speech and whatever. He's not banning people from the internet. He's banning people from his website.
Yeah.
Like, and I think the left wing have been sort of fooled by this whole sort of like free speech thing and blah, blah, blah. We should let people do this and let people do that. And you could see it really clearly when that Count Dankula thing happened. And he had people like Stephen Fry. Stephen Fry comes out. And Stephen Fry, you would hope he's left wing. You would hope,
but he's also been like on the same side as Jordan Peterson in a debate here, defending some kind of weird centrist shit.
But these are people that don't live in the real world. Like, Stephen Fry's Jewish, for fuck's sake. Don't go to bat for a Nazi. That's all I'm saying. All I'm saying. As a Jew, don't go to bat for a Nazi.
Well,
As a
they would
rule.
argue that
Just
he's
as
not a
rule.
Nazi, right? They would say he's
Well, of course
just
not.
making a joke. And
Yeah,
sure,
cool,
it's
great
a
joke.
bad joke.
Yeah, but like,
but-
look. I've got no problem with him making jokes on the internet. I didn't find it very funny. I don't think he should
No,
be
it's
sued.
terrible.
Whatever, cool, done. Like that's it. I don't need to go out and support him. I don't need to like write an article. I don't need to compare him to fucking civil rights heroes. Like, he's a bloke who made a fucking horrible racist joke on the internet. Loads of people didn't find it funny. Other people found it funny that they didn't find it funny. And it went to fucking court and it all got out of control and we missed like the end of fucking Brexit. Because that's all these things are. Like, they're just like distraction pieces for us to
They're
go
just
mad
culture
over.
war stuff.
When things like Dankula come into your newsfeed, just fuck it off. Mute him. Ignore him. He's just a punk. Like, in 5 years he'll be gone. He'll be forgotten about. And it's the same. It works the same for like Milo and people like that. When you do that, when you bait people, when you go out and you purposely do it, eventually people go, do you know what, man? You're just a bit of a prick, aren't you? And the money dries up. And that's the power you have from no platforming. Milo, whatever his fucking name is, should not be speaking in any university on the planet, and that is my opinion. But I think it's an opinion everyone should hold. Like, he's not qualified right now. He's not qualified. Talk to me in 5 years. Tell me what he's done in the 5 years between.
He's endangered students before, like he's
loads
outed
of times.
them and things
It's
like
scum.
that. So he's
Hold on. He's left wing because he's gay.
Oh, that's
yeah,
right. According to the most rational people in the scene.
We drove him away. The left drove him away. Him and Reuben.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Get out.
I was just reading Reuben's book, and in there's a part where he talks about how when he came out just before 9/11, I think hours before, he actually thought that him coming out caused 9/11.
Imagine having an ego that big. Imagine.
Yeah.
But this to me just shows that even years and years and years ago, almost 2 decades ago, he was not at all of the left. He sounds like a fundy. But yeah, so, I guess you're right in the sense that the increased connectivity allows for all these people to roll around in the same shit. But also, I feel like how it bleeds into the online atheist scene is from their criticisms of minority communities, like not careful criticisms, not well thought out. Like, when it comes to Islam and Judaism, we have some horrific takes. The guy who runs one of the largest atheist websites, Atheist Republic, he has some horrific takes.
He is horrible.
He is so bad.
Yeah, that dude's weird.
He's tweeted stuff like, I think more people have been tortured by circumcision or because of the Jewish doctrine than have been tortured by Nazism.
Well, not Jesus.
And Judaism is worse than Nazism.
Like for me, they're perfect sort of like crazy internet takes, and that is why you shouldn't take the internet seriously.
It's a specific part of the internet, though.
Anybody who legitimizes them in any way is bad. Like, I don't want to be involved with anyone who legitimizes an argument like that. Like,
right, but you see,
by legitimize, I mean entertain. Like for me, like if someone's racist, you just shut the conversation down. You shut the conversation down and you fucking leave it. Because that's what I do in real life.
But these people have massive platforms. They are given credibility by the biggest voices in the atheist community. Sam has worked with them or retweeted him. I'm sure Dawkins has. Loads of people give them credibility. They... when it comes to ex-Muslims, Armin is an ex-Muslim, and then he has, connections with some of the more moderate and centrist-seeming ex-Muslims, and they will never, ever criticize him. They'll defend him all the time, but they're known as the moderates, and they have really big platforms. They do speaking gigs. They have book deals and stuff like that. So they have some kind of like mainstream cred where an outside person is like, oh, you know, this person wrote a pretty reasonable book. They're not an extremist. Let me follow them. But then they're defending extreme positions and extreme people like this who say things like, you know, Islam is worse than Nazism, Judaism is worse than Nazism, more people have been tortured because of Judaism than Nazism. And so it just, I don't know, it spreads.
It's just that it's valuable. And the people that own the biggest platforms don't care. They don't give a fuck. Like, I think that sounds really reductionist, but they don't. Like they just don't care that
no, it's
you can
not
be radicalized on their
care.
websites.
They care and they support the fact that these angry, horrific, stupid, far-right ex-Muslims are just shitting on Islam. So it doesn't matter what else they're saying. They will embrace them, you know?
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's but they do all that under the guise of being incredibly rational and incredibly fair. Like, you know, we're inviting people from every side to share their opinions because we can rise above the you know, the intolerance and we can have these difficult conversations.
Yeah.
When really there are some conversations you just should not be having anymore.
No, but they don't even call these guys intolerant. The intolerant people are the ones who criticize these guys.
Of course, yeah, because free speech is what we need to be championing, of course,
at all costs.
Exactly, at all costs.
Yeah, because my speech has always been curtailed.
Also, Islam criticism at all costs, whether that is, you know, allying with Breitbart or whatever. Yeah. Do it with the far right. That's fine. Like we have this Canadian guy called Tarek Fatah. I don't know if you know him.
Yeah, I've seen him.
He's horrific as well.
Yeah,
it's
he's
such
horrendous.
A shame. Like he's tweeting it now because he has just one grift, and everyone is talking about the pandemic these days. There's certain people that have started to try to shove Islam into this, right? So he's tweeting images saying the other virus, Islamic terrorism. Don't forget about that.
Well, we got that in our first couple of weeks of lockdown. There was loads of stuff going around on Facebook saying all the mosques were open and stuff like that.
Right. There was an article on how the far right was saying that.
But like round by me, you can't really do it because like everyone sort of lives on top of each other. So you can just put your head out the window and see.
Yeah.
And nobody's out. Like nobody's at mosques, nobody's at churches. People are queuing up for shops. Like it's all bullshit. They've got pictures of packed mosques. They've gone onto Google and they've typed packed mosque, and they've gone, oh, look at the Muslims. They don't give a fuck, do they? And there was also stuff about Asian families living in bigger groups because they do. Mm-hmm. Like so, most of my mates live with their mom, dad, and grandma, granddad, and maybe an auntie or two and some cousins. Mm-hmm. Like, in a bigger house. Mm-hmm. Like, and that was being used as like, oh well, if you live in bigger households, you're more likely to spread the virus. Blah blah blah. And
what are they supposed to do? Move out of their houses?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like
I mean, there's a difference, though. I mean, there's a difference between addressing or you know, pinpointing a reason why a virus might be spreading and blaming those people for the spread of the virus. And that's what they're doing. They're blaming those people rather than just recognizing that there are factors that contribute, which is a very different thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, blaming a community and generalizing in the first place, that is wrong. And then... Yeah,
but it's sort of par for their course, isn't it? It's
for sure. Yeah. And then there's these word conflations, right? There's these words that they're using, like Armin, again, who also uses Chinese virus, retweets these things saying, what's worse, Islamovirus or coronavirus?
Oh, God. It's just so exhausting. It's so repetitive and so exhausting.
And then they also, he also has a history of tweeting from that Atheist Republic account, massive account, this image of Mecca being empty and half of it being full, with a picture of Dettol disinfectant, like saying, "Oh, look at this," you know, just implying all kinds of Nazi shit. But then when you say it, no, I wasn't saying that.
No, they were joking.
Yeah,
of course,
they were just selling jokes.
And then I think the funny and the worst thing about all of this is that, you know, half of the online Twitter atheist community who sees that and their immediate reaction is to laugh. They don't think it through enough to realize how bad it is. They just think, oh, haha, they're making fun of Islam. Let's retweet that. because they don't think about anything apart from how can we laugh at these religions because they're so ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it is. It's just like the one-track mind.
But what is the point of atheism that isn't trying to make the world a better place? Like, for me, that was always the thing that started me examining my ideas about religion and leaving religion, is that, you know, I didn't agree with it, and it seemed like some really old ideas that just don't work today. And I, you know, found a lot of things problematic. Now, and some of that being treatment of minorities and women and things like that. Now, if you're going to go right back to that in being, you know, a garbage MRA, anti-feminist person, or like shitting on, you know, religious minorities like Muslims in the West, what is the point of your atheism?
Yeah,
you're right. Yeah, like it's like, for me, like all religion should be personal, and that includes like lack of religion. Like have your year on the internet doing all your jokes about fundies and whatever, but from then on, just fucking keep it to yourself. I don't care what you believe in. I really don't. Like, but these people, it needs to be the focus. It has to be the focus every single day, because that's the life they're choosing to live. They're not choosing to live the life that's outside. They're choosing to live the life that's online, where everything can be done with big ideas, and everything has an answer. Like, and we're right and they're wrong. And
well, I think
and that gives you power. And like, power is so important for all of these dynamics, especially like for like race and gender and sexuality. Like, power plays such a massive role in it, and they never ever think about it. Like, they don't think about, for example, what it's like to be a minority in a country. So like, most of them are white in white countries, like, and they never frame anything from being like a black guy or a black woman in one of those countries. It's always framed from their perspective. But what about us?
Or their favorite token.
And all of these societies, no matter how you look at it, they are weighted towards white people. Like, and I'm not saying that we live in like extreme white supremacist governments and stuff like that, but a lot of our institutions were created when we thought that brown people weren't our sort of peers, and and all of these institutions, they haven't had reforms. They haven't gone, oh, hold on, guys, should we have a talk about all the racist policies we've got and get rid of them? They haven't done that. They've adapted through the years, and these institutions still exist, and they make the country unfair, and they won't acknowledge that. And this is all stuff that's at the universities, which is probably why they hate the universities. But people have studied it, and like, you can see how unfair societies. We know about privilege. Like, like, this is all simple stuff to understand. You can learn it in like 3 months. Like, you just have to make an effort. You've got to read books that you wouldn't ordinarily read. You have to listen to people that you've been told are wrong for like 3 or 4 years. Like,
I think the really interesting thing about that, though, is, I mean, if you look at this online community, they will be the first to claim that atheists are more moral. You know, they're more bullshit. Intelligent. That they would maybe never say the words. Some of them would. Oh yeah, they would. Yeah. That's the underlying, you know, driving force is atheism is, you know, morality. That's the morality focus. But they will be the last people to defend an idea like, or to defend, you know, the trans community, for example. There's
nowhere near that.
In that atheist community, that it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Or, you know, things like white privilege.
Yeah, but Ricky Gervais is helping all that transphobic shit, because he had that flight. He's got transphobic shit in his new show. That, from what I've heard, he had it in his last stand-up show.
I would like you to not mention his name again. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because that is how much I dislike that man.
Why, are you offended?
Oh, yeah. If I had £1 for every person I offended. Oh, wait, I do. Oh, God. Like, it's like one of his 3 jokes. It's unbelievable.
Oh, my God.
I think it's just really, it's interesting and just sort of mind-boggling that these people will, on one hand, say, oh, atheism, you know, because we don't believe in gods and all these horrible barbaric practices, we are morally upstanding citizens. We're intelligent. We're more refined people. But then on the other hand, they'll look at something like, you know, white privilege and say, nah, that's not real.
Yeah.
Just like,
but it's so similar to like white supremacy and the thoughts they have. Like, do you not notice that? Like, like like that air of superiority.
Yeah.
So that's what you need. That's what you need to sort of create that sort of cult-like area where people won't get questioned. And like these environments are similar because they're full of the same fucking people.
Well, yeah.
Like,
I think that's why so many of us decided that we couldn't be part of it anymore. Because, I mean, you're turning around to people that, you had some funny jokes with who are now defending anti-trans rhetoric unapologetically.
Yeah. Surely there has to be some sort of self-awareness has to come along eventually, whether it's at the end of like a big drinking binge or whatever. But
nope.
There has to be a point where you look around and you look at the company you keep. Like, because I was looking around in like 2015, 2016 during all the Brexit stuff, and I was looking at all like the bullshit opinions coming out, like, and I was just like, like that's completely against what I believe, because I'm like very sort of like globalist. Like, I think the world should be getting smaller, not bigger. Like the barriers should be coming down rather than up. Like, and I've always felt that way, and I still feel that way even after 4 years of all this Brexit shit. But but these people, they just seem to want to go with the status quo. Like, they didn't want to find new ideas.
White men, men love the status quo because it benefits them.
Yeah, because it supports them. Yeah, but also at the same time, like, I'd imagine none of these people would know that the worst performing children in British schools are white working class kids.
Yeah,
like, so boys and girls, not just boys and girls. So so they're the people that are growing up and having these opinions.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So they're the worst educated,
yeah,
and they are the most of society.
Yeah,
and that needs addressing majorly, and none of them care. None of them have tweeted about education since that Muslim school by us. They were teaching them about gay relationships, and they went up protesting. That was the last time any of them said anything about education for us.
Education is if it is somehow impacting on atheism. Oh, well, they want to teach religious studies class in a school. Well, we can't allow that. The kind of education matters.
Or if there are immigrants and minorities protesting, like there being an LGBTQ inclusive curriculum or something, then definitely.
You got to get.
That's a great day for them. Great day.
When it comes to Ben Shapiro being a homophobe, we have to accept that it's part of his religion to be a homophobe.
People have different opinions,
I mean, Dave Rubin wrote that in his book, and he complains about Muslim homophobia all the time. So, I don't understand.
Yeah. It's incredible, the mental gymnastics sometimes.
Yeah, this is the same kind of mental gymnastics that we'd laugh about with, like, people that defended bad scripture verses. But
yeah, absolutely.
Here's James Lindsay. There was like one person who tweeted about, another genius.
He's another one of my. I was trying to think of him earlier. Oh, he's just the best.
He is the worst.
I'd love to do like press ups with him or something. It'd just be fun. What a guy.
You should do workouts with Boghossian, actually, because he tweeted that male feminists have a terrible body habitus or something stupid like that. I don't know why. Like, real intellectual argument there.
Yeah, but these are the guys that will also go to the gym for like a year, get super yoked, and then realise that women still don't like them.
It's actually you. It's not how you look. It's you.
Yeah. I've got nothing to learn from these fucking guys on the all beef diet, like taking brain pills. Like, you can get fucked.
But yeah, they're so upset about, snowflakes, getting outraged about everything. Someone just tweeted about how they had lupus and the coronavirus was killing black people disproportionately.
Yeah.
And Trump put lupus patients who are disproportionately black women at a higher risk, I think because he recommended some medication, and now those stocks were low, something like that. So James Lindsay tweets, disproportionately doesn't imply bigotry. Getting impact and intent backwards is as sure a way to wreck oneself as getting correlation and causation confused.
This guy talks absolute shite, doesn't he?
Yes.
It's
it's just words. It's just words, and you may as well just put a bunch of words in a random order and hit tweet, because I think that it's actually what he does sometimes.
But when it comes to the disproportionately part, so like James Lindsay and all these guys, they want like, if it's something that's going to be proven to be racist, it has to cross the highest bar, right? Like if it's not a guy in a hood a KKK hood saying, this is my racism and here it is, then it's not racism. Things that are systemically, disproportionately impacting vulnerable minority communities, that is just, they don't understand that to be bigotry. And that is what's so frustrating.
They go on like an accusation of racism is a career ender, and it isn't.
No, not at all. It's a career starter in some circles.
There are no legal ramifications to being racist unless you are very fucking specific. Like, you have to be so specific, like in like a racism case, to get done. Like, there's no punishment for it.
No.
So pretending that there is just.
I mean, it was like that video clip that came out. Was it Chris Rock and Jerry Seinfeld, Ricky Gervais, and
Louis C.K. Yeah,
Louis C.K.
Yeah, when they were dropping. Yeah, just white people should never say it.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. It's really simple. Like, it's really, really easy to not say it. Like, I mean, look at the three of us right now.
Not saying it.
Not saying it. It's really easy.
Also, N-bomb has the exact same amount of syllables. So just say N-bomb.
It's true. Yeah. But I mean, I find that incredible. I mean, if these men can sit around and use those racial slurs and laugh like giddy schoolgirls about it, and
really
about the fact that they're doing it, and people just say, "Oh, well,
it's just jokes, isn't it?
It's not a big deal. That was just a joke. Look, they had a black guy in the room. It's fine." I mean, they can get away with anything, can't they?
Yeah.
Just gonna sneak in here to play another clip for you because this reminded me. It's not a COVID-specific bad take from Atheist World, but a generally bad take from Prophet Sam Harris. And when Mel said that they can get away with anything, I thought this would be a good clip to demonstrate that. And oh my non-existent God, when I went back to listen, it was way more horrific a take than I remembered. This is about the whole Liam Neeson thing. So first, here's what Liam Neeson said.
She told me she had been raped, but she handled the situation of the rape in the most extraordinary way. But my immediate reaction was, I asked, did she know who it was? No. What colour were they? She said it was a black person. I went up and down areas with a cosh, hoping I'd be approached by somebody. I'm ashamed to say that. And I did it for maybe a week, hoping some black bastard would come out of a pub and have a go at me about something, so that I could kill him.
So keep in mind, his first question to his friend after did she know who it was, what color were they? And now, here's Joe Rogan and Sam Harris discussing what Liam Neeson said and people's reaction to it.
So the Liam Neeson thing, and forgive me if there's some detail that has come out that I'm not aware of, but my understanding of it is he had a friend who was raped, and then he reported this state of mind, this murderous state of mind he was in, where he was walking around with, I think he calls it a kosh. I mean, that's the British word for it's like a small metal club, right? It's like a blackjack, or like another term for it, I think. And looking for a black guy to kill, just hoping someone's going to come out of the woodwork and threaten him so that he could, kill this guy in this act of instrumental violence because his friend had been raped by a black guy, right? So it's like any black guy will do. Now that's sort of like the extra horrific wrinkle to the story, right? Now, and he's confessing this as a kind of a symptom of transient mental illness, at least as far as I know. It's like he's horrified by the fact that he was in this state of mind, right? Can you imagine? Like Liam Neeson, an actor, I have everything to lose, and although I don't remember at what point in his life he said this happened, can you imagine that I was in this state of mind, right? And this is, as you say, an all too honest disclosure, but it is damn interesting, right? And it is the kind of thing that we should be able to talk about, right? And it's not, and the fact that this is becoming synonymous with racism seems just wrong given how he described her, at least how I've heard this, because he's saying, listen, if this had been an Armenian guy or an Italian or a Japanese guy, I'd be looking for one of them, right? I mean, what this was, at least on his telling, is the virus of instrumental violence. I mean, the virus of, like, I mean, this is how every blood feud ever in human history gets started. It's like someone from your tribe killed my brother, and now what I want to do is kill anyone from your tribe, right? It doesn't matter who, right? And that's, clearly as toxic as it gets, ethically, but that's not racism, right? We have a word for it. It's instrumental violence. But obviously he's getting totally pilloried over this. But we just need to figure out how to talk about how people can redeem themselves once something this unsavory is revealed about their past, whether they reveal it or whether it's just found out about them.
Yeah, I mean, it is racism, though, right? Because he's specifically looking for a black guy. I mean, I understand that it's a part of the other tribe.
No, but it doesn't suggest
that he has a predisposed...
That he feels one way or another about black people. It's like if you told me... I mean, he could have said, again, it could have been an Irish guy, right? Or it could have been, I guess he's Irish. Is he Scottish or Irish? It could have been an English guy, right? It could have been like any type, right? It's like the salience of the tribe is what he was reacting to, at least in his description. I don't know why you wouldn't take him at his word, given that he didn't have to say any of this in the first place, right? I mean, like, this is an amazingly honest and unnecessary disclosure. But it's, and I don't think people would think of it as racism if the story simply was, she got raped by a cop, and I was just hoping to go kill a cop, right?
Right.
The same story, right? So yeah, I mean, but we're so trigger happy in our outrage with respect to anything like that.
Why do you think that is? Like, what is going on? Because outrage seems to be more in season than it's ever been in my lifetime. I don't ever remember outrage being so just such a it's recreational.
Yeah.
Oh, those outraged SJWs have gone too far now. Canceling a guy for confessing he's had race-based murderous desires in the past? Pfft. Is there nothing these snowflakes won't cancel someone over? In seriousness, though, imagine saying about someone's desire to murder any black man, for the crime of someone entirely different, who just happened to be of the same race. Imagine saying that desire is not racist. I mean, he fucking straight up asked, what color were they? He asked for the race of the person. It's bonkers to even try and take the denial angle. It's so ridiculous that someone would try to split hairs about this publicly. Sam, people can hear you, right? And this particular bad take, it barely even registered as far as bad Sam Harris takes go. Because that's how much racism denying and downplaying he does. That it got lost in the vast ocean of Sam Harris's racism denial takes. He is the apologist he has always been complaining about. This is some incredible racism apologetics, like mind-bending, Olympic-level mental gymnastics to desperately deny that literal, race-based murderous desire is not rooted in racism. What the fuck is it with this guy that he just can't? He just can't accept anything as racism. It's so racist that even Joe Rogan had to very slightly push back, but just the once, and then he accepted it and pivoted to outraged SJWs. Always playing the hits, that guy. And there's a couple of typical Sam Harris moves here. 1, set the stage for the, I don't know all the details, but I'm still going to make excuses for it thing, giving him some room to backtrack if he gets criticized too hard. And 2, change the entire story, switch out all the basic elements, and remove race altogether and say, see, if it was this other totally different scenario, it wouldn't be racism. See, magic. Never mind that black men raping white women has been a racist trope since forever, and historically a tool of white supremacists. This whole defending the white woman's honor thing is something that has been used to hurt, murder, and lynch innocent men. And again, he literally asked, what color were they? Yeah, he may regret it and be embarrassed by it now, which is good. He should be. It's horrific. For him, it might be a long time ago, but when people are hearing it for the first time now, I think they're allowed to be a little upset by what they just heard, especially, people that are frequent victims of racism. They could be terrified by such confessions from a famous, prominent public figure. Anywho, sorry for that interruption. I'll let you get back to the episode.
It's it's all a bit effed up.
Yeah.
But anyway, I've got to shoot because I'm going to go on my Zoom call.
Oh yeah, your family Zoom call. All right.
Yeah, I'm going to charge my phone before I get on it. But yeah, we can do this again if you want. I can talk for hours about how shit they all are.
Me too.
All right, well, why don't you hop off and I'll close this off with Mel. And it was nice chatting with you.
Nice speaking to you too. See you both soon.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, so...
Yeah, there was actually one more thing I wanted to mention, if you don't mind.
No, absolutely.
Back to this COVID-19 thing.
Yeah.
And this is one thing that's always it's really, really bothered me from this atheist community. And it's taking some sort of tragic event that is honestly completely unrelated to atheism, but then sort of co-opting it to push this agenda.
Yeah.
And it just really grates on me when this happens. And it's happening now with this. I mean, we've got this virus where hundreds of thousands of people are infected. People are dying all around the world. And you're putting out tweets like, oh, why didn't God save these people from COVID-19?
Yeah.
All these people got infected in a church. Where was God? Like, why are you doing this? What purpose does that serve apart from, trivializing all of these deaths just to say, oh, God isn't real?
And who's to say that there are, no ridiculous atheists in any of these anti-lockdown protests, right? I mean, there's people
I'm sure
from
there
the
are.
rational skeptic community that are blaming the lockdown on the left and shit already. So, yeah, and then Sam Harris did something similar where he took this video of this woman talking about how she's covered in Jesus' blood, so she's not going to get infected, so she's going to go to church, and he says, atheism finds its Super Bowl commercial, right? Like, this is a great advertisement for atheism because this woman, she's so ridiculous. I mean, she is a ridiculous, stupid person. But you could easily cherry pick some of these horrific Nazi-esque, Muslims are viruses, or Muslims can be cleaned out, and Islamavirus and shit like that, and say, do you think this would work as atheism's Super Bowl commercial? I think not.
Yeah, exactly. But they would never see it that way, which I find incredible for a group of people who claim to be so far superior in terms of intellect to the religious people. I just find it incredible.
Yeah. They're completely free of biases. They're so far above everyone else. And I think to an extent that leaves them more prone to not self-correcting, because if you're already feeling superior and you're already feeling kind of above everyone else, you're not really going to self-reflect. And how Blobfish was saying that it's very supremacist and it's reminiscent of white supremacist communities, this like air of we are superior. It's also reminiscent of a lot of people in religious communities who feel like they're above everyone else and they hold the truth. And in the atheist scene, people mock that and call it out for its supremacist nature. But they don't look inward and see that actually there's a supremacist attitude here too, where you think you're so far above everyone else.
It's so far ingrained into that community, though. I mean, it's and you can't even really be that surprised that they don't see it, because they're surrounded by people who are exactly like them. They don't follow anybody who doesn't think like they do, who doesn't, want to parrot the same things that they do. So they would never know. I mean, how would you?
Right. And they complain about others being in an echo chamber.
Well, exactly. Yeah. And they've done it to themselves. It's incredible. And it's the same sort of fundamentalist attitude that they would, completely chastise any other community for. The Christian fundamentalists, they all think the same, and, no one thinks for themselves. There's no free thought. Well, take a look at yourself. Take a look at who you're surrounding yourself with, and see, do you have anyone that speaks differently than you do? Would you for a second think about some of the things you're saying and decide if they're actually true? Would you actually change your opinion if you were presented with new evidence? Because they go on and on about how they would. But I think we've seen quite a lot of examples where that hasn't happened, and actually they would go completely the other way and see new evidence that doesn't support what they believe, but they'll find a way to argue out of it.
Yeah.
But they don't see it though, which I think is amazing.
Yeah. It's funny because they will show these clips of people in Pakistan or Muslim fundies that are going to the mosque and, breaking lockdown rules. And they're like, why do Muslims behave like this? And meanwhile, there are fundies here in the West, there are anti-lockdown protests in the West, and the attitudes are just so different towards it, right? Like with Muslims, it's always like this kind of othering. However, I will say, though, that there have been some of these IDW type accounts that will take these opportunities to take someone that is way more racist than them, more blatantly racist than them, and call out that racism.
Of course. But you know why they do that? It's so that they can, in the future be like, well, but look, this guy was being racist and I called him out. Therefore, I am not a racist when I say these things that are very questionable.
Exactly. Just because I hide it better than these guys. And I call out the people who just openly state this shit. But yeah, there's so many mind games and so much dishonesty, and it's just... Yeah. I don't know why, but I'm always interested in the intersection of why this bigotry bleeds into the online atheist scene, because I came into it with such a positive view, and I was like, yes, I found my community, and
that's exactly how I felt. It's like, oh, I found my people. Like we're all the same. We don't have this belief, and we are good people, and we're working for good change, but it doesn't take long before you see that that's not true. And I think Blobfish had a point there, that there is a lot to do with this online community, and you don't have to say who you are. You can say all the horrible things that you're thinking without any sort of repercussions. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's almost a form of radicalization. I mean, you see these horrible ideas, and they sort of perpetuate in your newsfeed, and then you start to look into them a little bit more, and you might start from a sort of an okay position of, free speech is important. Mm-hmm. Well, okay, a lot of us believe that free speech is important, but there are shades of that, and it can spiral to a point where you say free speech is so important that we should be allowing people to run through the streets and say, gas the Jews, and there has to be a limit. And I think when you get onto these online communities and you see, people making these impassioned speeches about how important free speech is, it does tend, in some cases, to lead to this radicalization where you find yourself fully on side with it, where maybe had you not been engaged in this online community, you may not have been, which I think is interesting. And I think that, unfortunately, the sort of skeptic community, it does lead itself, the angry skeptic community leads itself to a more discriminatory type of person. Because if you look at them, they'll say that they criticize Christianity and Islam in equal measure, but they don't really, do they? I mean, it's typically the Muslim community that they're most angry at. And why do you think that is? I mean, yes, they'll bring up their memes about, oh, well, what ethnicity is a Muslim? Because look, here's a white Muslim, and here's a brown Muslim, here's a black Muslim. But, I mean,
definitely, Islam is not ever racialized. Definitely, non-Muslims like Sikhs never get attacked.
This is the thing. It's just, and it's the same sort of thing as saying like, well, I've got a black friend, so I can't be racist. It's like, well, I'm not being racist because look, which race is it? I mean, it's such low level thinking of, so one dimensional. But if you look at it, you can see what they're really trying to say. I mean, there's a reason why they're so anti-Muslim. And I think that's just because a lot of them have an ingrained discrimination, and it's brought out when they have a chance to speak about it with other people.
Yeah.
And I just think it snowballs in that way, and that's why so many of them end up on the right wing.
And do you think that the anti-Muslimness is what causes their general anti-leftness, or the anti-leftness has caused the anti-Muslimness?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's more the anti-Muslimness has formed this anti-leftness, because what you naturally get from that, you have people who have these, ingrained anti-Muslim feelings who are starting to now, because of the platforms they have, speak about them. And they have supporters who believe the same things they do, which is great for them. But then they have a lot of people who are dissenting and saying, well, no, you can't say that. That's horrible. That's a horrible thing to believe and a horrible thing to say. Mm-hmm. And I don't agree with you. And I think that it's wrong and you shouldn't have a platform. And that's what's driving them to say, well, who do you think you are? You're just a social justice warrior and I have free speech. And it builds that sort of animosity, I think.
Yeah. They have this overlap with the right when it comes to shitting on Islam and Muslims. And then all these other views start to bleed in. That's the other right-wing bullshit, the anti-feminism, the anti-transness, the anti-SJW-ness, and whatever else that we see. And we even see Trump apologetics coming from people who claim not to support Trump. Or
Absolutely.
We were talking about tokens earlier, people that they use as shields. We have Majid Nawaz, who did this incredible take criticizing Trump, which he rarely does in this way, for suspending all immigration to the U.S. Mm-hmm. And then he complains that this is the left's fault. It was so bizarre. He goes, "Dear pro-lockdown lefties, fueling popular outrage to do more," in terms of the lockdown, "leads to this." It's just so bizarre. How is the lockdown, people who are advocating for sensible measures right now of social distancing, how are they to blame for Trump suspending all immigration to the U.S.?
Oh, that's an incredible take. It really is.
Yeah, and then he goes, "We've already seen overzealous policing. Now we see an immigration ban, and those who suffer your zeal will, as always, be poor, brackets, mostly minorities, and poor immigrants. What happened to your social justice?" So now this is the fault of social justice warriors.
Well, but I mean, let's think about this. I mean, they're suspending immigration. They're suspending travel from everywhere. It's everywhere. I mean, they're not just saying we don't want. It's not like his previous Muslim travel ban where he's saying just the brown people, we don't want them to come in. I mean, the travel ban is universal. I mean, there are restrictions on Canadians going into the U.S. But it's. I mean, we're talking everyone. It's purely, well, I mean, we can debate all day about whether or not it's actually an impactful measure. Yeah. Because I'm not really convinced that it is, to be perfectly honest. But I mean, you can't blame people for not who know that the virus is spreading and who are staying down and who are supportive of lockdown to stop the spread of the virus for not coming out and saying you should be opening your borders and letting everybody in, because it may be detrimental to the spread of the virus, which means why would that be on your shoulders?
I mean, this may very well be Trump just using this situation to put his anti-immigration stuff out there in stricter ways.
It may well be.
But that is just not the fault of the left, right?
Well, no, of course it's not. No, of course it's not. I mean, the vast majority of countries in Europe have travel bans at the minute. Yeah. They've got locked down borders. I mean, this is not a political thing at all. It's just purely to try and prevent this infection from getting any worse than it already is. Do you ever read something and it's just so unbelievably ridiculous that your brain can't decide which bit to focus on first?
I read I just read Rubin's book, and
I don't know how you did that. I don't know how you managed to put yourself through that, but well done, you.
I wouldn't have been able to do it if it wasn't for audio reading it to me. But yeah, there's so many garbage takes And it's indicative of like a deeper problem, as you know, are the garbage Me Too atheism takes, the garbage feminism atheism takes. I mean, I don't know what it takes for some people to realize that there's a systemic bigotry problem in the online atheist scene. But yeah, I mean, a global pandemic is not going to do it. It's not gonna.
Clearly. It's fueling the fire somehow. Things didn't get any worse.
Yeah, because it's the fault of the left. Those goddamn pro-lockdown lefties.
I know. I'm sorry. I'll take the blame for this one, guys. Don't worry. It's on me. Send me your hate mail.
How very Canadian of you to apologize for this.
Yes, it's true.
I think we've said what we needed to say. There's a lot of garbage out there.
Yeah, that's a good summary. There's a lot of garbage out there. Most of it in the atheist community.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of non-atheist garbage out there, but we got to call out our own garbage, right? That's what they advocate for in theist communities. Why aren't they calling out their own extremists? So, you know.
Here we are. This is what we're doing.
Exactly. Somehow it's not acceptable to clean up your own side, as Ruben used to say. Oh, one thing I wanted to add, speaking of Ruben, is that he was on Fox News the other day saying things like, because now everyone's talking about COVID-19, this somehow proves that racism and sexism were like made-up problems that progressives had. Oh, he goes, when you have a real issue to deal with, nobody cares about race and sexuality and gender. Actually, he couldn't be more wrong, because the way that COVID-19 has been impacting different communities differently is of great significance right now. You know, domestic violence has increased, and Black people are disproportionately affected. I don't know what he's talking about.
Well, it's the same thing. They hear what they want to hear. They're, oh wow, there's a big virus. That's all we're talking about now. Well, actually, no. There are a lot of subplots to this virus, actually. And yeah, like you said, one of the worst things that they've been realizing is the disproportionate impact on ethnic minorities, which is a really big thing. I mean, I don't know if it's become such big news over on that side, but here, like in England, I mean, it's all over the press. They're talking about it daily. You know, so it's sure, it's not there if you're actively ignoring it. Sure. There's no sexism. We're not talking about racism or sexism or gender issues anymore because you're simply not looking at it, which is fine. Carry on.
Oh, as I was saying, loads of garbage out there.
Clearly, we could go on for a long time.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I know you've got babies to get back to, and I've got one to get back to who you probably heard screaming in the background.
Yeah, mine too, which is why I'm happy to carry on this conversation as long as you want.
I know, it's been nice to have some peace and quiet, right?
Yes. Indeed. Well, thank you very much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
All right, take care. I'll see you out there in Twitter land.
Yes, indeed.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Polite Conversations. You can support this podcast by sharing the shit out of it, making some noise about it, or contributing via Patreon. Patreon.com/nice mangoes. No E in mangoes. Also, you can follow me on Twitter @nice mangoes. If you want to make a one-time donation instead of a monthly Patreon one, you can do so via PayPal. nicemangoes.blog@gmail.com. Remember, no E in mangoes. If you've got an interesting story and would potentially like to be a guest, you can email me there too.